we're going to talk about reincarnation in this chapter, so I will mention something right away. It is believed by some, like there are two opinions within Judaism. One, that you can reincarnate as many times as Yahweh wants, and you are able within the time of human history in order to grow more and more spiritually when we all get our reward in the next life, in the resurrection, which will be for eternity in that same body. Um, but others believe that because of the seven millenniums and because of a couple verses that mention the number seven, it is believed that seven is the maximum of times that one can reincarnate within this history. Because remember that Adam was given 1,000 years of life if he ate of the fruit. So that would mean that each life would have had the potential of 1,000 years, yet because of sin was shortened. So in that case, you would only have seven times because human history would last 7,000 years. So each thousand would be a life, right? I hope that's understood. So, like I said, there's one belief that seven times would be the the maximum amount of times that a person could reincarnate. However, others interpret, since seven represents completion, others interpret the number seven in those verses as saying when you get to be completed as many times as needed. Um, and I mean completed in the sense of rectifying everything that needs to be rectified in the soul and completing the mission for which you were created, pretty much. And I know some may have questions or issues regarding reincarnation. And I said that we're going to mention it in a bit because the verse that most people use when it comes to that subject, it's from this chapter. So we will have to talk about it. And I just mentioned it because remember that the nefesh is in the blood, and the blood goes through the heart, right? The heart pumps the blood everywhere to take the nutrients from the food and other things to the rest of the body. So the lampstand would represent that nefesh, the life, which is in the blood. And then the table is the heart, right? Where you eat, so you get the nutrients. Remember that Yahushua in the book of Revelation speaks about him knocking on the door. And if one opens, he will come in and sit at the table and eat with us. That means go into the heart and become one with us, write the commandments in the heart, etc., etc. That's why also in Isaiah 65:11, Yahweh is um, rebuking the people of Israel because they left Yahweh and they set a table for God. That means that they open their hearts to fortune, to the God of fortune, called God in Hebrew, Isaiah 65:11. So that's why they set a table for him or for that entity, representing that instead of opening themselves for Mashiach and the spirit of truth, they do so for fortune. Um, so we have the lampstand that has seven lights. The six lights, three of the left and three on the right, are lit by the one in the middle, which would represent the original soul, which then gives life to other six bodies. Just like that, let's say candle. In that case, they would not use candles, but I'm just going to use that word. Uh, the one candle in the middle would light up the rest of the candles with the same flame, meaning the same soul on a new body, which would be the candle. Instead of candles, right, they would pretty much have oil and wicks so that they would just light that up. But the idea is to use the light in the middle to light the rest. So that represents the one soul coming again on a new body when another light is lit with the same. So this is huge, and I'll explain. But the first, the 27 is key, and we need to understand it because, like I said, that is the verse that most people use to go against the teaching of reincarnation, right? Because it says, and as it awaits man to die once, this verse is talking in general, humanity. Because of the sin of Adam, all would have to die, right? Because it says, in fact, that since through one man all died, then through one man, Yahushua, salvation is given to all who believe. All right. So through one man, all died. So because of the sin of Adam, all died. However, remember that Hanok was taken alive. He didn't see death. Same way with Eliyahu during his first manifestation. That's Eliyahu, that name. They were taken alive, Hanok and Eliyahu. Why? Because we needed the testimony of at least two to understand that Yahweh will take some without dying. The 144,000 of Revelation 7 and Revelation 14 who have the seal of the living mighty one, the name of the Father and the Son. So that's why Yahweh took Hanok and Eliyahu to show that a few would go without experiencing death. But he also took Yahushua, not without dying, but after death, he was resurrected, and being alive, he went up to heaven, right? So, many also claim that since Yahushua went up, and remember that when he went up, they were looking up, and there were two witnesses, two angels next to them, and they said, why are you looking up? Like saying that is not the way is going to be fulfilled. You should not be looking up for a physical manifestation from the heavens, because that's what they were waiting for in the first manifestation as well. Because when they said that Yahushua was Mashiach, they said, but isn't Mashiach coming from heaven? And we know that he is the son of Joseph and Miriam. So to them, he didn't come from heaven because he came through a human, not understanding that he came through a virgin after his soul coming from heaven. So the same happens with the last. He comes from heaven, entering through the body of a woman as the son of man, a woman who has a regular sexual relation with a human, a man. That's why he is the son of Adam, while Yahushua is the seed of the woman, prophesied in Genesis 3:15. So, also, the fact that the second manifestation of Yahweh needs to be also born is prophesied in Isaiah 9, like the coming of the first from a virgin was prophesied in Isaiah 7. Also, Micah, the prophet Micah, chapter 5, shows that after Mashiach left, then a woman would give birth to the second manifestation. Micah 5. All right. So when they are looking up, two angels appear and say, why are you looking up? The same Yahushua who left the same way is coming, meaning in the flesh. But they said, why are you looking up? Like, don't look up. Just wait for him on earth as a person, for he's coming the same way in the flesh, but this time in a different flesh, because new wine in a new wineskin, right? So in a new generation, he would have to come in a new body, meaning Yahweh, for Yahushua is at the right hand of the Father, opening the first seal and the second, the rest. So remember that Yahushua said that John the Baptist was Eliyahu if they could receive it. And we're about to see some of that. But by Yahushua saying that, was saying that John the Baptist was the reincarnation of Eliyahu. By saying if you can receive it means if you can believe it, if it is within your faith enough to understand that. But it is not a necessity for salvation. So reincarnation is not a teaching that you need to believe in order to receive righteousness and salvation. However, it is something that is true according to scriptures. So John the Baptist by Yahushua was said to be Eliyahu. Eliyahu was taken alive to the heavens. So after Eliyahu, the first time with that name because it is said that he was also Pinchas, or um, one of the descendants of Aharon. When Eliyahu was taken alive, then years later, from Elisheva and Sechariyahu, John the Baptist is born. Elisheva, Sechariyahu, we get Eliyahu. John the Baptist is born, and Yahushua said that is Eliyahu that was to come. So even though Eliyahu went up alive, he didn't come with that same body down. When he came back, it was his soul, not his body. His soul entered a new body for a new manifestation, new wine in a new wineskin, in a new body. So if Eliyahu went up alive and when he came back was born again, that is to show how the Messiah went up alive, and when Yahweh would come again, he would have to be born again. So also that is a reason why that happened with John the Baptist. But going back to this, and as it awaits men to die once, and after this the judgment. So people say that you cannot reincarnate because it says here that you die once. Okay, there are several things to say here. First, as it awaits men to die once. When a soul, for instance, in this case, Eliyahu went up, then his soul enter a new body. If a soul enters a new body, then it's a different person. Even though it's the same soul, by having a new body is a different combination. And that combination is what will experience life in that generation. So that soul in that body is a certain person. John the Baptist, the soul of Eliyahu, but he was called John the Baptist. John the Baptist died once. If his soul comes again in a new body, his name will be different. So he will be a different person. That person will die once, right? So it is not a contradiction. Remember that when Yahweh sent his neshama, his ruach, enter the body of Adam through his nostrils, and when the ruach of Yahweh mixed with the body of Adam, that created the soul, the nefesh chaya. He became a living soul. So John the Baptist would come in the spirit of Eliyahu. So when the spirit of that same person, Eliyahu, entered the new body, then the soul of John the Baptist came to be. So when a person dies, is judged according to the works of that soul, that nefesh. Even if it was lit up through the spirit or breath of a person who had come to this earth before in a different body. Now, remember that, like I said, there will be a contradiction because as it awaits men to die once, but Eliyahu didn't die, Hanok didn't die. Also, Eliezer or Lazarus died once, then he was resurrected, and later on he died again. Because the first to be resurrected for eternal life was Yahushua. He is the first fruits of the dead. So Yahushua was the first to be resurrected for eternal life. That means that Lazarus, who was resurrected before him, by him, was resurrected as a person was healed from whatever sickness, right? That sickness could bring death, but he was healed by Mashiach, so he didn't die. In this case, that death through which Lazarus went was like sickness because he was healed from death, like he was resurrected, but later on he had to die. So in that case, Lazarus died twice. That would be another contradiction. And not just Lazarus, Jonah, who died in the fish and who is said to have died when he was a child as well and resurrected by Eliyahu. So he died 3 times as a child, as an adult, before going to Nineveh, and then finally uh, when going to Sheol. So those who resurrected and then later died twice at least. That would be a contradiction. So this verse is talking in general. And as it awaits men to die once, I repeat, some died twice, one died thrice, right? When it comes to Jonah, and some never died. But it was um, prescribed because of the sin of Adam that all would have to die. And like I said, when a certain spirit gets mixed with a certain body, then we have a soul with a different name, even though it was the result of a spirit that had come before. In this case, Eliyahu, for instance, now John the Baptist, Yahuhanan and Mercer. And as it awaits men to die once, and after this, the judgment. This is another key. It says, after that death, judgment. However, we see in Revelation 20 that there is a final judgment. So if there is a final judgment, that means there are previous judgments. Just like the word new covenant makes the previous covenant old and it will disappear, the word final judgment reveals that there are previous judgments, right? So here is not talking about the final judgment. It's talking about the previous judgment. What judgment is that? When a person comes in whatever generation he was given to come to this world, as he dies, his soul is judged. The body goes to the soil, it becomes dust again. The spirit of life goes back to the Father, but the soul, the nephesh, goes to Sheol after being judged. And if the soul is judged and condemned because of sins and not accepting the Messiah, then that person would go to the part called hell, Gehinom, the part where the souls are in fire. But if that person is justified by their belief in Messiah and their works, then they go to paradise, Abraham's bosom, right? Where Eliezer or Lazarus, the other Lazarus, was taken, um, while the rich man was taken to the uh, part of torture. So when a person dies, that soul is judged to see where they are going to wait in Sheol, the part of hell, the part of paradise. And that same judgment is to see if they will or can come back again in a different generation, in a new body, to fulfill something else or continue fulfilling what they had to fulfill. So if the soul enters a body, that is a new person. If that person dies, that is the first time that person with that body is dying. And if that person is judged, then that is fulfilled already. However, he may be judged. If part of the judgment is that that soul needs to come back, when it does so, is through the same spirit in a different body. So that's a new person. Just like it is believed that Noah reincarnated as Moshe, a different person, but the same essence. So, and as it awaits men to die once, and after this, the judgment. So also the Messiah, right? Yahushua, who had to come just once, having been offered once, right, in sacrifice, to bear the sins of many. So that's why he came through a virgin and fulfill all the commandments, so that he could bear the sins of many, for his blood was spilled for the many. So having been offered once, bear the sins of many, shall appear a second time. So if Eliyahu appeared a second time, but with a different name in a different body, that is how this will happen. Shall appear a second time, the second manifestation, apart from sin. That means that during the second manifestation, He doesn't have to come through a virgin because it is not to pay for sin as he did in the first manifestation, because he already fulfilled that. So he doesn't have to fulfill it again the way he did previously, coming through a virgin, fulfilling all commandments. Now is like the prodigal son. Through the coming of the first, he is justified. That is what in Isaiah 63, which talks about the coming of the last, it says, and I looked, but there was none helping. So when the last comes, Yahweh as the last, he will realize that no doctrine is true. There is no one to help to bring salvation. And I was astonished that there was none upholding. Remember that Mashiach said, when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith in the world? That was a rhetorical question, meaning no. So when the Son of Man comes, he is astonished that there is no one upholding. So my own arm saved for me. Yahushua is represented by the arm of Yahweh. The last is represented by the hand of Yahweh. Arm and hand are two parts of the same extremity. So the arm is first, then the hand. So the arm came first, Yahushua, to die for our sins. Then comes the hand and realizes that there is none to uphold. So his own arm saves him, upholds him, meaning Yahushua, the first coming of Yahweh, saves the second manifestation, because there is no one else but himself to save himself. So my own arm saved for me, and my wrath upheld me. That also shows that is referring to the last, because it was mercy that upheld Mashiach on the cross when he said, forgive them, for they do not know what they do, as in forgive their unconscious sins. But now that they know, the wrath will manifest. So my wrath upheld me. But his arm, meaning Yahushua, is the one who saves him. So shall appear a second time apart from sin. So to feel something different, not needing to come through a virgin. So not needing to come without sin. Because as the Son of Man would have sinned, for Adam, man, brought sin to the world. And that's how nobody will be able to have any excuse before the throne of Yahweh, referring to how Mashiach didn't have sin or how Mashiach came through a virgin, whatever. Shall appear a second time apart from sin to those waiting for him, meaning the chosen few. The five virgins, right? There were 10 virgins, but 5 who had the wisdom to realize his coming through the oil that they had, which is the spirit of truth. To those waiting for him unto deliverance, meaning the chosen few who are waiting him for salvation during the harvest, the transformation. Now, to close, I'll just look at this verses real quick. I know there are too many. Well, there are many. So I'll just read them real quick, because I know many will have questions or complaints about the mentioning of reincarnation. Second Samuel 14:14 says, "For we will surely die and become like water spilled on the ground." So we see that water represents death, as we see in the rest of scriptures, which cannot be gathered up again. A person, a human, cannot gather up the the water that is spilled on the ground, or the ground swallows it. Just like when a person dies, the soul goes down to Sheol, and even the body to the ground, which cannot be gathered up again. Yet Elohim does not take away a life, but he devises means so that his banished ones are not expelled from him, cast out from him. So if one cannot worship or serve Yahweh in Sheol, like David explains, because we can only serve in the reality of the living within the body. So being expelled from him or cast out from the earth refers to being killed, to dying. So, for we surely die and become like water spilled on the ground, which cannot be gathered up again. Yet Elohim does not take away a life, but he devises means, he has his means, so that his banished ones, those who have died, are not expelled or cast out from him, meaning that they can come back, for he is able to bring back that water. That's why there is a sun that brings the water up and becomes a cloud that goes to the mountain and then becomes a river again that goes to the sea, which represents Sheol. So a river represents life that goes to Sheol at the end of it. And the fact that a cloud takes the water into the mountain where it becomes a river, that represents also reincarnation. Job 1:20-21 says, Then Job arose, tore his robe, and shaved his head, and he fell to the ground and worshipped. And he said, Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked shall I return there. Even though it's talking about death in general, when people die, in the spiritual sense, we are naked from the body, of course. So there is a spiritual interpretation here, being naked from the body and returning to the Ruach, the true mother. But in the physical, if we read this literal, it says, Naked I came from my mother's womb, true, and naked shall I return there. When a person dies, he doesn't necessarily dies naked. And second, when he dies, he doesn't go into his mother's womb. So here is talking about naked I came from my mother's womb during birth, and naked shall I return there when I am born again. Right? And once again, we can see this spiritually or in the literal sense. In the literal sense, it means reincarnation. When he comes back after death, he will be once again in his mother's womb. Obviously, a different mother. The woman that would give birth to him in a different generation, that would become his mother also. So he would return to his mother's womb, naked again. Just like we are born naked of understanding or knowledge regarding our previous lives. But in the spiritual sense, remember that Yahushua was telling um, the Pharisee Nicodemus that he had to be born again. He was talking about the spiritual, and he said, How can I go back into my mother's womb? Right? He should have thought of Job when he said, Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked shall I return there. So, how can I return to my mother's womb? Through dying. But in the sense of what Yahushua was explaining, dying spiritually, dying to this flesh, dying to your to the desires of the foolish heart, dying, which was represented by being immersed in the water, because that is the water of a river that goes to the sea, to the Dead Sea, representing Sheol. The river Yarden or Jordan was means descending, just like the life of a human descends to Sheol. So naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked shall I return there. Yahweh gave, and Yahweh has taken away. Blessed be the name of Yahweh. Job 33:25. His flesh shall be young like a child's. He shall return to the days of his youth. Obviously, Yahweh can make a miracle to make a person who was old feel like a child, but the literal sense of this is reincarnation. His flesh shall be young like a child's when he becomes a child again. He shall return, go back to the days of his youth, go back to life. Job 33:29-30. Behold, Elohim works all these things twice, in fact, three times with a man, to bring back his soul from the pit, that he may be enlightened with the light of life. Right? Those who see this with the Christian lens, who forbids reincarnation, will see this verse as only referring to a person who is about to die and Yahweh saves him from death. And he will do it twice and even three times. However, if we read it in every sense of what is being said here, behold, Elohim works all these things twice, in fact, three times with a man to bring back his soul from the pit, meaning to bring back the soul from Sheol, that he may be enlightened with the light of life, meaning that he may receive life again. So he brings the soul back from Sheol, where the dead go, and gives him or her life again in a new body. Twice and even three times. Why does it say twice and three times? Because remember that a curse goes to the fourth generation. That is also interpreted as meaning reincarnation. So if a person comes the first time and he is cursed by his actions, then he is allowed to come three more times. So meaning twice and even a third time. So the three times given plus the original one. So the original twice and even three times. And if every time he does something bad, if he doesn't rectify anything, then he's not allowed to come back again and he's thrown into the pit without the ability to come to life again. Four times is the maximum for those who do something bad every time they come, every time they're on earth. So that's why that is said like that. Now, Job 37:12, and they swirl about, being turned by his guidance. Swirl about, come and go, being turned by his guidance. Yahweh is the one who guides the souls, that they may do whatever he commands them on the face of the whole earth. Now, depending on the translation, we can see this a little bit different or clearer, but the swirling about is referring to dying and resurrect. I mean, dying and reincarnating, dying and reincarnating. In fact, reincarnation in Hebrew is called Gilgul, which is kind of like a cycle, the turning of the wheels, just like a wheel turns and turns and turns. So the soul swirls about. Psalm 9:17. Listen to this one. This one is amazing. And well, uh, that's a problem. The translation as well. The wicked shall be turned into hell, and all the nations that forget Elohim. However, if you look at the Hebrew and some other translations, but because they translated it as Christians, they took away what shows that reincarnation is a reality. Because here, in the literal sense, if we look at the Hebrew, it says, the wicked shall return into hell, and all the nations that forget Elohim. Return. For you to return, you have to have been there where you are returning to, right? So if they are returning to hell, is because they've been in hell already. So it's talking about the souls of the wicked that were in hell and were allowed to come back. If they are still wicked, they will be returning to hell. It says, Yashuvu Reshaim. They will turn back, or they will return the wicked to Sheol, where the dead go. Lisheola, to the Sheol. So Yashuvu Reshaim will return. You see, Reshaim is the wicked. So let's just write it to see how it translates it. But you already saw. The wicked will return. So you see, this is the correct translation. The wicked will return into Sheol. So if they're returning, it's because they were there before. That is reincarnation. Psalm 19:8. The statutes of Yahweh are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of Yahweh is pure, enlightening the eyes. So it gives life. Those who fulfill his commandments when they come to this world are allowed to receive life again so that they can come to the reality of the living. Proverbs 20:27. The spirit of man is the lamp of Yahweh, searching all the inner depths of his heart. The spirit of man is the lamp of Yahweh, is like a candle. So that's why I've mentioned how the nefesh is like the flame. The candle itself is the body. You can light another candle, another body with the same flame, the same soul, because the spirit of man is the lamp of Yahweh. Now, let's see this in Hebrew real quick. It says here, Ner Yahweh, lamp or candle of Yahweh, Nishmat Adam, the breath of Adam. Nishmat is Neshama. Neshama is the third level of the soul. The soul has 5 levels: Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chaya, Yechidah. So the Neshama, the third level, which is very important, it resides in the head, represented by the brain, and it's translated normally as breath of Yahweh that enter the body of Adam, who became a soul. So Ner Yahweh Nishmat Adam, the candle or the light of Yahweh is the soul of man. That's why Yahweh can see anything and everything regarding us and within us, our heart, everything, our thoughts, everything, because our soul is pretty much a lamp of Yahweh. But my point here is that is as the fire that can light another candle. Here we have Kohelet 1:4-9. I'll read real quick. One generation passes away and another generation comes. So that refers to the souls going and coming, going and coming. One generation passes away and another generation comes, but the earth abides forever. The sun also rises and the sun goes down. So just like the life of a person rises and then goes down when dying, and hastens to the place where it arose, and is eager for the place where he arose. So the sun also rises and the sun goes down and hastens to the place where it arose. So the soul comes through birth, goes through death, and it hurries to the place where it arose, meaning birth, reincarnation. The wind goes toward the south. Wind in Hebrew is ruach, which is also spirit. The wind goes toward the south and turns around to the north. The wind whirls about continually and comes again on its circuit. So the ruach, the spirit of man, life, goes toward the south and turns around to the north, from right to left, from birth to death. The wind whirls about continually and comes again on its circuit. The ruach. All the rivers run into the sea, just like all lives lead to death, like we just saw in Hebrews 9:27. All the rivers run into the sea, yet the sea is not full. All the souls go to the Sheol, but the Sheol is never full. To the place from which the rivers come, there they return again. The rivers come from the mountains to Sheol, to the sea, but then they return again to the mountains where the river started. So to begin a new life, reincarnation. All things are full of labor, man cannot express it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. So the eye and the ear, the senses of the soul, are not satisfied by one life. They want to come back again and come back again. And that's why we will be satisfied completely through eternal life. That which has been is what will be. That which has been is what will be. That's why everything repeats. History repeats itself. That which is done is what will be done. That's why they killed John the Baptist and Yahushua. That's why they will kill Eliyahu and the last, the witness like Moshe. That which has been is what will be. That which is done is what will be done. And there is nothing new under the sun, not even the soul. Isaiah 43:7. Everyone who is called by my name, whom I have created for my honor, I have formed him. Yes, I have made him. Here we have the 4 levels of creation, which also can be interpreted as 4 reincarnations, or the first is an incarnation and then the 3 reincarnations. So everyone who is called by my name, that is the highest level. Atzilut, emanation, whom I have created. That's the second level, creation, Beriyah, for my honor, to give honor to his name. I have formed him, third level, formation, Yetzirah. Yes, I have made him, fourth level, Asiyah. So through coming again and again and again, then we are complete. We are not only emanated, but also created, but also formed, but also made, meaning we become his image and likeness. That's why also Mashiach came on the fourth millennium. That's why the light of the world was made on the fourth day, etc., etc. That's why it's the fourth candle that is used to light up the others, like lives. Matthew 5:26. Assuredly, I say to you, you will by no means get out of there till you have paid the last penny. Yahushua is given a parable talking about those who die and go to hell, represented by a prison. But then Yahushua says this, assuredly I say to you, you will by no means get out of there till you have paid the last penny. So that means that you can't get out of hell. You can't get out of jail if they give you a bail, right? You can't get out of jail. So depending on your sins, depending on your on the verdict of the judgment given to the soul when dying, depending on that, you may have a bail, meaning you may be able to go to hell for some time, and then after paying for those sins committed on your previous life, you can be allowed to come back to life, to the world. I repeat, if the person does wickedness every time he or she comes, you can only come back 3 times maximum after the original one. But if you always do something good, then you come back more than those times. But if you come from hell, then the possibilities are a lot less of obviously of actually rectifying and becoming a better person. But Yahweh is merciful and he gives the chance. So surely I say to you, you will by no means get out of there till you have paid the last penny. Also, it's interesting that Yahushua came in the middle of history. So we could think of those who came before having to come again to have the opportunity to accept Mashiach who already came. Just like those who died in the flood would be able to come again after the flood to accept the law, which they rejected or worked against, and that's why they had to go through the flood. But here, Yahushua is showing that you can get out of hell, not the lake of fire. Once final judgment happens, souls will be sent to the lake of fire. That lake of fire is eternal, just like a lake is closed from all around. Yet the sea is not. The water of the sea goes to the mountains and then come down as a river into the sea again. So the sea and the river represents that process of reincarnation. The lake represents final destination for the wicked. They are not going to be able to come back again. That's why, and this is key, that's why Revelation at the end says that there will be no sea in the next life, because there will be no reincarnation as there is in this reality. So for Matthew 11, 13, 14, for all the prophets and the law prophesied until Yahuhanan. And if you are willing to receive it, he is Eliyahu who is to come. So not only he says he is Eliyahu, meaning he is the reincarnation of Eliyahu if you are willing to receive it, but who is to come, as in saying, who was supposed to come, he already came. But also by saying who is to come is saying that he has to come again, as one of the two witnesses in the book of Revelation 11 is the queen of the south will rise up in the judgment with this generation and condemn it. For she came from the ends of the earth to hear the wisdom of Shlomo, and indeed a greater than Shlomo is here. Some interpret this as the queen of the south, Sheba, the queen of Sheba, having to come reincarnated in during the last generation. Although the full interpretation of that is that during the final judgment, she will get up and accuse those from the generation of Mashiach. Matthew 16, 13 to 14. When Yahushua came into the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, saying, who do men say that I, the Son of Man, am? So they said, some say John the Baptist. So they thought that John the Baptist had resurrected because they had killed him. Herod had killed him. Some Eliyahu. So some believe that Eliyahu had returned as Yahushua. So they believe that Eliyahu, even though he went up to heaven alive, they some of them believe that he had been born again as Yahushua. And others, Yirmiyahu, or one of the prophets. So that means that the Yahudim, the Israelites, they believed in reincarnation because they were not only expecting Eliyahu, they were expecting Yirmiyahu or any of the other prophets. So they expected everybody to be reincarnated and to have something to do similar to their previous life on earth. So they were expecting the prophets who had died to be reincarnated and become prophets again. So that's why some thought he was Eliyahu, others thought Yirmiyahu, or other another one of the prophets. Matthew 19:30. But many who are first will be last, and the last first. There are several interpretations for this. The Christian one is a correct one, but not only that one, there are different levels, and one of the levels is reincarnation. But many who are first, meaning many who came in the previous generations, in the first generations, will be last, would come in the last generation. Mark 9:11, 12. And also is talking about those who people think are last will be the first entering the kingdom of Yahweh. And many who people think will be first entering the kingdom of Yahweh will be at the very end of the line if they will enter at all. Mark 9:11 and 12. And they asked him, saying, why do the scribes say that Eliyahu must come first? Then he answered and told them, indeed, Eliyahu is coming first and restores all things. And how is it written concerning the Son of Man that he must suffer many things and be treated with contempt? Indeed, Eliyahu is coming first and restores all things, referring to John the Baptist, but also referring to the very end when the two witnesses would appear. And how it is written concerning the Son of Man, the last, that he must suffer many things and be treated with contempt. John 9, and this is to close the study. Then this is very important. Perhaps of all the verses, this is the clearer one. The best one for this argument. John 9:1-3. Now, as Yahushua passed by, he saw a man who was blind from birth. So we have a person blind from birth. He was born that way, right? And his disciples asked him, saying, Rabbi, or Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? So we see that according to the question, they knew he was born blind. And still they dare to ask, who sinned, this man or his parents? So we know that you cannot sin in the womb. So they were not referring to him sinning in the womb. They were referring to him sinning in a previous life. So to them, because of the Torah, they thought that there were only two reasons for a person to be born sick or to be born with a problem in their body. They thought there were only two ways because of what is written in the Old Covenant. Because of previous sins in a previous life, you could come to this world and have a problem with your body, a disease or something like that, to rectify what you did in the previous life. Or it could be a generational curse. Because of the sins of the parents, the son could have a problem, so that the parents pay by suffering for their children because they may not repent or suffer if that happened to them, to themselves. So Yahweh knows how to do it and why. But here, I repeat, that shows that Israelites believe in reincarnation because they asked if he was a reincarnation and if his blindness was due to his sins in a previous life, or if they were due to his parents having sinned. So Mashiach, instead of rebuking them and telling them, how do you think that, are you crazy? Reincarnation is not a thing. you guys were fool, or anything like that, like he would have, like he did in other times regarding other things. He, instead of rebuking them or rejecting that notion or correcting them, he actually adds a third reason, giving us then three possible reasons for which a person might be born with a problem, with a deficiency, with a disease, etc. For Yahushua answered, neither this man nor his parents sin. That means that it was possible for him to sin, therefore, in a previous life. And it was possible for his parents to sin and have a child with a problem. But in this specific case, was not the case. Neither this man nor his parents sin, but that the works of Yahweh should be revealed in him. So Yahweh wanted this person to be healed by Mashiach, who would give him sight. So that's why he was born blind, so that Mashiach would heal him. Because the Jews had the belief that the Messiah, and still do, the Messiah had to fulfill four miracles, at four miracles to show or confirm that he was the Messiah. Resurrect a person after the third day, meaning on the fourth or more. That's why Yahushua resurrected Lazarus on the fourth day. He waited until the fourth day to do that. To heal a leopard, yeah, and he healed 10 of them, and I'm sure more, but there's a story about how he healed 10 lepers. Then the other one, I always have, casting out a mute and deaf spirit or demon, which he did. And then also giving sight to a man who was born blind. So this miracle was that miracle. And since that miracle was needed, Yahweh made this person be born blind so that he would be healed by Messiah. Because, for instance, if this person was blind because of his sins or his parents' sins, then uh, he could not be given sight, because it wouldn't be just, because he would have to pay in a certain way, unless obviously it would happen like the others who were healed after asking forgiveness, or like when Mashiach said um, that he forgave a man and then gave him the ability to walk, which he didn't have, showing how forgiveness of sins had to be given first before receiving healing. But in this case, there was no need to forgive sins from another life or from his parents so that he could receive sight. Plus, if it was because of his parents, then his parents needed to be forgiven or repent. And if it was him in a previous life, then it would be just for him to go through it in order to pay for it. But anyways, the point here is that this person was born blind, and they asked if he was born blind because of his sins in a previous life. So that shows that the Israelites believed in reincarnation. The Messiah doesn't correct them. Therefore, the Messiah also agrees. And that's why he says that John the Baptist is Eliyahu. So this is how we're going to